When I was growing up, Christian music was a complete subculture that existed outside of the mainstream. I used to have to go to 2 different music shops to buy my CDs. One shop to go and buy the worship CDs and the Christian CDs, and another shop to buy the mainstream CDs. And we had different radio stations, different TV shows, and we completely existed in the shadows. And, we were kind of knew that we were maybe laughed at by the rest of culture. So we were happy to just stay there. But I don't think that's where we're going to stay. I think something is really changing and we're going to become really established as part of culture.
Congratulations to Stormzy. This is his first ever Brit Award.
Firstly, thank God, car. That's the reason why I'm here. That's the reason why I'm able to. But I don't even know how I've managed to achieve this. I thank God. I give this to God. This is the grace of God. It's South London in the Ross Clark building. Trust me.
Mumford & Sons took home the Album of the Year Grammy for Babel, beating out El Camino by the Black Keys, Channel Orange by Frank Ocean, and Some Nights by Fun.
By way of introduction, I really love Jesus. I always have, and I always will. And I feel we live in a time of heightened hostility, whether it's the increasingly divisive political atmosphere here in the West, or the more catastrophic human disasters and conflicts further east. And of course, we ask ourselves what it is we should do. And I, like many of you, would want that answer to be informed by what Jesus thinks.
I believe that Jesus died for my sins. Mm-hmm. I believe that you can do anything if you just believe.
Justin Bieber is taking y'all to church. I don't know
taking
if you know
y'all to
that.
church.
Okay.
Amen.
I'm Chris Lawson-Jones. I've worked in Christian music for over 15 years. I've seen it grow and grow in the face of the great music industry recession. But lately, there's an idea I have not been able to put down. I believe we're entering a new era of Christian music. Something's brewing. With Stormzy, Chance the Rapper, Bieber, and many others drawing on Christianity for inspiration. And with this stuff I'm hearing coming through now, I'm convinced the Christian world is making the kind of music that's truly exceptional. Trust me, something is going on with Christian music right now. In fact, I'm so confident that I've convinced my bosses to invest big time in this idea. What if there was a label for this music? What Sub Pop was for grunge in Seattle? What Ministry of Sound was for dance in London? What Motown was for, Motown? That's a big ambition, isn't it? It is, but I've got 8 months to find out. 8 months where I'm going to be taking this new label, running club records, from a pipe dream to a first single. But it's not that simple. The younger Christian musicians can be skeptical of labels, of sacred music being part of an industry, or even money itself. And what happens when everyone you meet is convinced that they've been called by God to be successful? Can everyone be right? But I don't think a business plan is enough. This is something God himself will have to help us with if we're going to pull it off. Stick with us on the Running Club Records podcast.
When I first met you, Chris, I was surprised because you're not what I expected. I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Lily, and I'm the secular producer. I'm an outsider. I'm an outsider to Christianity, to the music industry, to Christian music. I didn't grow up in the church. I didn't grow up in a religious community. So I have misconceptions. I have ideas. I have ideas about what Christian music and church and communities are like. And the first one is, I'm sorry, I didn't think you were going to be cool. I mean, I didn't expect you to be like a real music exec. Do you remember our first meeting?
Yeah.
So you brought me to Abbey Road Studios. I had never been there. You can't walk in. There's a high level of security. And it felt very much like I was in a band on the guest list. We went up to a recording studio where you were recording a band, and we had drinks sent up to us. You know, I don't live in a world where you get drinks sent up to you in recording studios.
Christian was saying that some of the stuff that the Beatles recorded on was just hanging out in the corridor the other day.
And it all felt pretty exciting. It wasn't how I thought my first meeting with someone in Christian music was going to go.
Well, dealing with people's preconceptions or misconceptions, not just about me, but about this music and this Christian music world, is something that I encounter every day. A lot of people don't know that this music is popular all around the world and is growing in popularity all the time. So those songs that we make and put out there, they generate a lot of revenue, and those revenues go into the millions of pounds every year. So that day at Abbey Road, I was working with some guys who would be perfect for Running Club, and bringing them to Abbey Road, showing them what we can do for them as a label in terms of making the best possible music on the planet is what we want to do. And it's a very helpful place to kind of do that and show what we can do.
So how did I end up at Abbey Road Studios that day?
We decided we wanted to make a podcast to document our journey and to ask ourselves some of these hard questions. So I got some of our team together, and a couple of days later, one of them came back. He said, so I prayed about it, and I just had a conversation yesterday where Lily was recommended. But I'm curious, like, as someone who doesn't necessarily have a faith, what did that feel like to be the result of a prayer? Like, does that freak you out?
No, it doesn't. So where does the Running Club story begin?
It starts with the music. And in my job as an A&R person, I hear a lot of music, and I started to come across this sound that was emerging from different people in different parts of the UK, which didn't fit the mold or the preconceptions of what Christian music should sound like. And I started to get this bee in my bonnet about creating a home for it. So yeah, these musicians were all kind of kids in the early 2000s, and so they grew up on sounds and bands like Delirious, and yeah, they just kind of have created from all of those influences their own sound. And I'm talking about music that's drawing on diverse mainstream influences as far apart as kind of house music and grime and electronica and ambient and Scottish grunge rock. I mean, it's coming from all over the place.
So over the past few months, I've really got to know these musicians. And you're right, their music is so eclectic. But one thing that they do have in common is this commitment to what their music stands for. These musicians are unabashedly raw about their faith.
When I approach music, I believe that God can turn up in any room. And sometimes I think he can turn up in any room irrespective of me being there or not. Of course, he's God. But I think I can be this conduit where if I'm leading a group of people, I am passionate about revealing God in a whole way.
What God has put into, I believe, people from these islands is a wildness of spirit that has always been tried to be tamed by things like the Roman Empire or whatever. It's always been kind of pushed down, and an edginess, a prophetic edginess, when people are truly allowed to be who they are as artists.
We want the church to experience good music as well. We're Christian guys, we love the church, we're all part of worship teams, so we want our churches to appreciate good music.
You know, there was no obligation on Jesus. He wasn't under duress to do what he did. He absolutely chose the cross. He chose to love us in that way. And yeah, the love of Jesus will just always rock me.
So Chris, you've got the record label. Running Club is a thing, but what's your first move? What's your first piece on the board?
So I'm kind of formulating, like, trying to figure out what's going on with all this music. And I get sent by a mutual friend this band, the Harmonica Movement, out of Aberdeen, Scotland.
Yeah, we were crosses in WWJD bands. Have you heard of them before? No, not so much, no. I think the music talks for itself, and we never want to be cliche Christian. We just want to be ourselves.
And it's just another example of really exciting music being made. So I put it on in my office, and I'm hit with this raw, dirty, passionate rock sound where they're screaming about Jesus helping them. It's so overtly and like unashamedly spiritual and explicitly Christian, and it's just a really heady cocktail. I wanted to go and check it out because this kind of band, if they can do it live, then they're the real deal. I looked online and they happened to be playing that weekend in Glasgow. So I cleared the diary, I jump on a plane, I go up to Glasgow for a day. They're playing at this festival in the afternoon. I say, hi guys, nice to meet you, great set. They say, do you want to go for a coffee? And I say, yeah, great, I've got 20 minutes before I need to go back to the airport. But I just had to see it to know whether they'd got it. So they tell me that they're working on the new EP, and we quickly figure out how to put them on a development deal with Running Club, which isn't even a thing yet, but it allowed us just to invest a little bit of money in their EP and to get them down to London to play in an environment they'd never played in before. So I invite them down to play at Dublin Castle.
Who's the headline then? Who's on last?
I don't know, we're on first.
You're on first.
So Dublin Castle is a grungy, grotty pub in Camden, North London, with a little room out the back where 4 or 5 bands a night just turn up and play their hearts out. And it's one of those legendary places in London where various bands have been discovered and signed by A&R guys and labels over the years. So I'm curious to see how they blend in with the other bands that are on the bill that night, whether it's going to just be seamless or whether it would be like a Hallmark movie coming on in the middle of Sundance Film Festival.
Because the night wasn't a Christian night.
No, it was a regular multi-band night at the pub.
So the title of our EP is called Prisoner of Hope. And we're not bound or like in a prison in a sense, but what we firmly believe is that when we become Christians, we are Christians, but when you accept Jesus in your life, that if everything works out how the Bible says, that we're going to go to heaven, and heaven sounds like the best place that I could ever imagine. So that is the biggest hope that we could ever have in life. So regardless of what's happening in our lives just now, whether it be tragedy in our families or just things are just not working out, we always have that hope because we're going to go to heaven one day. So life is going to be over. The Bible says it's like a blade of grass. It's just like a snap of a finger. But it says that heaven is for eternity. So that's why we're freaking excited for the life that we get to live. So for us, we're prisoners of hope.
right, guys. Well done.
It's okay.
It was brilliant. It was brilliant. I wouldn't say that if well, I probably would say that actually, because you've come a long way. No, it was great, and well done for going with it. How are you feeling?
That was fun.
Sweaty.
And
Yeah.
like that post-gig kind of haze.
Trance.
Yeah, trance almost is the best way to put it. I was like,
A couple more things made sense to me as well tonight, like watching you guys. Like I think prior to tonight, I've not known how the conventional church would have a grid for you guys. Like so I've been focusing on how do we just basically bypass the church and just find other places. But I think I saw a way that we can kind of kick the church up the backside with some of the stuff you're doing, without like taking away from any other avenues that we have.
Yeah.
So
the other thing I need to find out from them is whether this is just a hobby or whether they're really serious about this, whether they are dedicated, whether they are up for the sacrifice and the long haul of becoming a successful band.
I think a big question for you guys moving forward will be, if this goes really well, who's ready to quit their jobs and like do this full time? You know, because everybody's got jobs, everyone's got families, everyone's up in Aberdeen. Like, what's that going to look like if this goes really well? I think that would be the biggest question for you guys in the next year.
I guess it's almost the dream for every musician to be offered something like this and for people to come alongside and to build them up, with the potential of it being you can quit your full-time job and you can be a full-time musician. But again, with the position that we're kind of in, like we all work and we've got like a life built around that kind of thing. So it's exciting but also quite scary at the same time, because if it does become that point where you need to make the choice, you know what you want to make, but you know. Because
I think that is a tension, because as much as I love you guys, like this isn't a hobby for me. This is my job, and my job is to help put the foundations in place for you guys to be full time, for you guys to travel around the world playing these songs, like ultimately. And you know, there might come a point where I can't help you anymore if you want to stay in Aberdeen and just play at the weekend. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be a really interesting journey for us this year.
Yeah. We're talking about the faith within the band here. So it has to come to a point that we're like, okay, God, if this is the next step for us, then we need to trust you. It can't just be, hey, well, maybe that looks ropey financially, or maybe that is a scary next step. But, okay, God, if you are calling us with my fingers being bent, then...
There is a classic crossover point as well for bands that do go full-time, where the way that royalties work, the way that income streams work, they can be delayed by 6, 9, 12, 18 months to work their way through the systems. So, you know, like famously, James Blunt had a number one with You're Beautiful, but he had a number one around the world and couldn't pay his rent because the money hadn't flowed through yet.
For me, it's a clear feeling of peace. If there's no peace and we don't go, and I would put that across the whole of my life. If there's no peace before a big decision, then okay, God, I'm just going to wait and see what happens, and I'll wait till I get a clear confirmation of your peace and my spirit.
But there's no manual to this. There's this is how God speaks in this way. It's a personal, a personal thing to everybody.
So, Chris, I think one of the questions that we have been wanting to ask you as a band, taking into account that there are so many good bands around at the current time, then why would you be drawn to work with a band in the obscurity of Scotland who nobody's ever heard of before? Why did you want to give us a chance?
I think a lot of what my job is based on gut instinct and intuition, and that is going to be 50% right and 50% wrong. Obviously, listen to a lot of music, and so you just have to go with the stuff that gives you the feels, I suppose. You guys gave me the feeling.
So I have to run something by you. The night of Dublin Castle, I was chatting with Harmonica Movement before they were going on, and they told me that their music has potential to save people. And I think as an outsider, us outsiders really do get fixated on evangelism from within Christianity. And I'm curious what your take is on that. Will the label have a sense of evangelism?
So I'm acutely aware that a lot of outsiders are also fixated on evangelism, or think we're fixated on evangelism, and believe it or not, that we don't sit around talking about that all day. Yes, the heart of Christianity is a message of salvation, but there's so many other aspects to God and the Christian life. The label isn't an exercise in evangelism. It's creating a platform for and a home for people who really believe in the message of their music. So for these guys, they so believe in the gospel, they so believe in the message of Jesus Christ that they themselves feel saved. They want to do that for other people. Others will be more focused on making songs for believers to connect with God, who will and won't really be thinking about evangelism. I just want to put music out there that represents what's going on in the church with young people, and people can make their own minds up about that.
Next time on the Running Club Records podcast.
Music is subjective, so everybody has different reactions to different music.
I mean, I want to come on board with where you are, and I really want to support your vision and not make it my own. But I've listened to the Harmonica Movement, and I couldn't get excited about them. I mean, we're putting ourselves out there as a label who can possibly answer that question that a lot of people have, of like, I'm sick of middle of the road Christian music, and I don't feel like that's an answer.
This episode of Running Club Records was produced by me, Lily Ames. Sound design was by Ned Porter, and consultation was provided by Jonty Herman, Gavin Haynes, and Chalk and Blade Productions.